Welcome back to an episode of Crystal Lake Fishing. We got Tommy's right there, walking his gear down. We just launched the boat and we are about to head back out to the same spots that we hit in the last episode. We're gonna focus more on trying to get a big hogfish and just keeping up on those killer mangs. Got a lot of meat in the freezer. I'm gonna do a big kind of mangrove snapper fish fry coming up here. But stay tuned because we're gonna also try to get that black grouper. If not this episode, then next episode. I did forget my dive light, so it might be a challenge, but I'll see you guys on the water. That structure. That's crazy.
Like a ship.
Something like that. We're about to get in the sea. Awesome. Welcome back underwater, everybody, and I want to thank you all for 1,000 subscribers. I'm going to do a 1,000 subscriber special video. This isn't it, but it will be coming and there will be a giveaway in it. This is a bit of a longer video because, as you can see, this spot is so cool. There's just bait everywhere. Like, there's so much structure. It's massive. It's super tall. There's all these caves that I go into. It's just an incredible structure, and my dives today were really long. Most of them were 130, 140, 2-minute long dives. So I got a lot of stuff to get through today. First fish, though, see that hogfish over there, and let my shaft fly, pop it on the first dive on this incredible new spot. And to give you a little sneak peek of what's to come in this video, we ended up naming this spot Cubera Castle. So stay tuned throughout the video if you want to see some cool stuff with some big snapper. First fish of the day, though, we got that nice hogfish. We got Tommy, who you saw swimming around right there, and dropping back down to check out these caves. So the way that this spot worked was it was these tons of concrete slabs piled on top of each other, and it came up about 20 feet off the bottom in 50 feet of water. And what that meant is there were 3 basic levels. There's this top level that I just peeked into. There's the lower level, which you can see under me. And then there's the bottom level, which is sand, and you can go under. So it's like a 3-story building underwater. And there's mangroves in all of it. The difference is that the levels are made up of caves that you can swim into and swim through, and you got to be really careful because there's not always an exit on the other side. It's so cavernous that it's pretty easy to get lost. So we stayed around the outside of the structure, peeking into it for most of the beginning of this trip. You see that tire there? You can see snapper coming in and out of the structure constantly. It goes way back in there. Like, this thing it's huge, it's tall, but it's also wide. It's like probably the size of a big barge. Even there's fish on top, and I'm just here on my way up, pop a really nice mango just on the way out of this dive. And that's just, at the beginning. There's just fish everywhere. The deeper you go into the structure, there's bigger fish too. Flat, calm day too, which is really cool. It was just all the conditions, the spot. This was a really, really fun day of filming. Okay, so getting back down there. This time I'm going more into the cave. I've kind of done some exploring, and I want to go into this section of cave that I had first seen when I went for that hogfish. You can see there's a huge opening here. And I kind of just let myself float down into it. I'm not really going super far back. I'm just looking around, looking at all the traffic of all these snapper coming through, and seeing if I can't find a big one. Because when you have a spot like this, you know that you're gonna do well. You know that you're gonna shoot a bunch of fish. So you don't want to shoot little ones early and then have to cull them later. Instead, you want to only shoot big ones, be really picky, and That's true on all trips, but especially true on those trips where you see the kind of fish that we were seeing on this trip. Just tons of them and lots of big ones. Unfortunately, I missed that fish, if you saw, and I'm going to start getting ready here for the next dive. If you saw that mackerel there were also mackerel all over this spot. So, hold your breath with me on this next one. Heading back into the cave. Now, this dive was the most beautiful dive of the whole day. It was just, like, incredible to see the way that this cave opened up like it did underwater, with all these mangroves just hanging out in there. So I get down, I see to my left there's like a big opening, and there's on the other end there's light coming out of it. So I know that if I make it all the way to this other end here, I can just kind of go out the exit on that other end. So I make my way into this big cavern, and you can just see like all of this has a roof above it. There's structure above me right now, but it's so open that I can't even fit the roof in the frame of the camera. I'm kind of looking right here at some of these mangoes that are coming in and out of this kind of mini cave. It's just like a rock slab that goes back, but it's small enough that nothing can get in there except the mangoes, and they love that kind of structure where they can like all pile up in there. That's the exit to it, if you can see. And I just kind of sat there and waited. I should actually later in the day shoot out of this same hole again because of how productive it is, because there's probably like 40 or 50 mangoes hanging out in that one little hole. I start to head up, and you can just see how big this structure is. It's just a crazy, crazy cave. Alright, next dive, I go back to the same spot, right? I know that there's a bunch of mangoes in that little hole. Last dive, because it was my first dive going actually back into the cave pretty substantially, I was more paying attention to where I was and making sure I wasn't going to get stuck or lost in there than, you know, seriously trying to shoot and land a fish. Because once you pull the trigger, you have to assume the fish is going to go crazy, and then you're going to have to deal with it in there. And when you have such a big cave system, that becomes even more of a problem. So I drop on the other end of this cave, and you can see right to my left is that exact same hole. You can see the little thing hanging there, and I'm just sitting here and hunting the same hole, just waiting for an opportunity to get one of the bigger fish out of there. Hanging out, looking straight back in there. Wish I had a dive light, but as I said in the intro, don't have one. Just wait till I see a nice one flash back there. You gotta be real patient with these fish, because they spook when you get to the front of the hole, and then they start making their way back, and that's when you pull the trigger. Pull the trigger on this nice one that was up front, and I end up getting a 2-for-1. The one in the back was even nicer than the one in the front. And you see I can head straight up here because I dropped on the other side of it as opposed to going through the entrance that I went through at first, which is really nice because in structure like this you want to be able to go straight up and down because it's risky to dive somewhere where you can't just leave if something gets hairy, or if you get caught on something, or if you extend your dive too much. See, there were mackerel everywhere, so I just went ahead and shot that one. You'll see when I brain this fish, I stab myself in the hand so bad with the knife.
I just stabbed myself so bad with my knife.
It ends up being fine, but it hurt for like the next 15 minutes or so. Yeah, mackerel are soft, so when you brain them, don't, shoot it through like you're trying to break its skull. Anyway, next dive, same structure, just still fish everywhere. Sheep's head, this many sheep's head in the summer is crazy. Seeing kind of on the edge of the structure here, there's like a weird kind of, how do I put it? it's like an indentation where the structure is everywhere around it, but then there's this like flat pile of sand, and there were just mangroves all in it. So I would just lay in the sand and wait, and just hang out and look and for fish, and you can see there's structure just like everywhere, except right behind me. Right behind me, straight back, is just sand all the way out. There's a nice mango right there. I kind of decide I want him, and he spooks into the structure. So I just kind of wait, looking in the general direction until another nice one comes. Gives me the time of day. Pull the trigger. It's just so cool to see this amount of life on this cool of a spot in this shallow of water. I am very lucky to be able to dive the Gulf for the 3 months out of the year that I get to in the summer. And days like this, where everything aligns, great weather, great fish, and great structure. And the visibility is not bad on this day either. Like, it's not like perfect ideal, but it is actually very good for the kind of hunting that we're doing. Because if it's too clear, they're going to spook too early. Especially fish like Cubera, which, stay tuned for that. Anyway, next dive, I'm doing the exact same thing. Going to that indentation where there's sand and just hanging out until I see a nice fish. Going down. You can see what I'm talking about, how there's structure kind of all around, but there's just like this sand patch. And I'm sitting in the sand, looking around, not even really crawling that much, just waiting for the right fish to come in front of me. Because there's so many fish here, they feel more secure than if it's just a couple mangoes. So they'll come up, they'll get curious, and they'll come to me if I just sit down and grunt long enough. My dive times are also pretty good on this day. I have a 2-minute dive that I'll show later. So I didn't really feel worried about being able to sit down long enough for them to get comfortable with me. So I'm just waiting for these fish to get used to me. And when I see my opportunity, I take it. It should be right. Oh, no. Boom. Stoned him too. Heading up with my prize, and I'll tell you, this next dive is the dive that I was talking about, you know, the Cubera. This is so cool to see a Cubera in this shallow water, and I'll let you see what's going on. That's a really fat mango, but I'll let you all see what goes on in this dive. I get down, same spot, just hanging out on the bottom on my way down, and I, on this dive, don't just stay in the sand. I'm kind of forced to move a little bit because I get down and I kind of spook a bunch of the fish when I get down. I don't know why they spooked on this dive and not another, but instead of going towards the sand, I go and look behind me back towards the structure, and I end up moving towards it a little bit. You can see that hogfish. I thought about that hogfish, but I wasn't sure if he was legal. I was just kind of like looking at him, but I didn't really need to pull the trigger on that fish because we had a bunch of big mangoes. We already had a hogfish. I was sure I was going to see more. Anyway, I'm looking out more towards into the structure. There's that big area of sand that I was talking about. I look back, and right here is where I see it. So I'm going to circle him right here and slow the footage down. That right there is a Cubera, and as I come closer, you'll see how much bigger he is than everything else. He's a giant. All those mangoes around him are giants. They're all legal, definitely. And that fish is just huge. And I'm having a mini freak out. I do the stupid thing and I chase him. And unfortunately for the rest of this day, I don't see him. But we come back to this spot later and hunt Cubera. And I'll save that for another video.
Tommy, there's a Cubera.
By later, by the way, I mean like on a different day. But I pull out the Marauder in case I see the Cubera again, and because I really wanted to see the Cubera again. And so I was using the Marauder for the rest of our time on this spot, really trying to get that Cubera. Just, God. I stopped pulling the trigger on smaller fish because I would just sit down there and wait for this Cubera. I really wanted it to come back. And after a couple, not a couple hours, but like an hour and a half of that, I decided, okay, I'm going to start pulling the trigger again on like other fish. So I get down and notice how after like an hour of me still, there's a nice little Goliath right there, of me diving on this spot consistently, not pulling the trigger, but like, spooking all the fish. There's still hundreds of mangoes everywhere. Just, there's no end to the fish on this spot. It's just crazy. And it's not even that crazy compared to some of the stuff I've seen other people show me, right? Like I've seen people in clouds of American red snapper this thick. Those are scuba guys in like 200 feet, but still, like I'm a kid in a candy store right now because mangoes are my favorite fish. You all know this if you've been watching the channel for long enough. Anyway, I see this fish kind of far away. I've got the Marauder, so I just snipe his ass. Or, oop, I'll bleep that. I'll bleep that out. Anyway, get that fish. Come on up. It's a nice mango too. It's not, it's not a small fish. It's just not a Cubera, so I'm not like overjoyed as I would be if I hadn't seen the Cubera. It's so cool to see a Cubera in 50 feet of water right behind right in the Gulf. That's unheard. Like, Cubera is shallow in the Gulf. Like, when you shoot a Cubera, you're thinking, or when you see Cubera in the Gulf, you're thinking, like, minimum 100 feet with these big wrecks, or, like, maybe you'll find them on like, barges or something in, like, 80 feet, maybe, but, like, still, it's nuts. Anyway, heading back down, this is the last dive on this cool spot, and then we go to a different spot. But I'm getting down, I'm on the edge of the structure. I'm on the other side of the structure, the side that I chased the Cubera out to. I'm not at the sandy patch that I started in. And I'm literally sitting in here looking in the holes for snapper, and I turn around, there's two nice hogfish. Well, the white one is slightly smaller, even though because it's white it stands out a little bit more, but it is smaller than the orangey one. And I wait for the orange one to turn, and I grab it. I was trying to get them to line up for a 2-for-1, because I've never had a 2-for-1 on hogfish, and that would be so cool. There were a couple times this summer that I got close, but I ended up not being able to get it. So I head up with my hogfish. And I don't even know how many fish we have in the box at this point. I think it's like I have like 6 or...
Tommy! There's another hogfish the exact same size right under me.
Yeah, I think I have 6, and Tommy has like 4 at this point. Anyway, throw this hogfish up in the boat, head to the next spot. Alright, so loading the Reaper again, because this next spot is more of a mango spot. It's less of a... You're not really expecting to see anything but mangoes, and we had to get a bunch of mangoes for Tommy's family for this day, which is why we're shooting so many. I love mangoes, but I can't eat 20 mangoes in, like in one day. But we're trying to grab as many as we can for a nice big cookout. So this spot, you can tell it's very different from the last one. It's just like a bunch of pipes. This tall thing that's on my right is not... It's like one tall thing. It's not like the gigantic tall structure that was before. And so we dive on the tall thing because it kind of attracts that big school of bait that's right there. And the mangoes will be around. They're on this little barge wreck that's around it. They're on the pipes that are around it. But most of the structure that we're hunting is pretty close to the sand, like these pipes. And there's a big school of mangoes. And I grab one really quick. Oh, no, I missed that fish. I totally missed that fish.
There's so many huge ones over here. It's like a cloud of them.
Yeah, but that was a big school of mangroves. They were all like pretty nice. So, this dive is me going back down and not... I'm not gonna freak out if I see a big school of mangoes like that. Although it was crazy, like it looked like a school of bait, right? Like if you go back and watch that section, it looked like a school of bait. That's all I can really say. So I get down, hanging out, try to be calm, and the consequence of trying to be calm like this is that my heart rate was very, very low. So this dive, I end up hitting the 2 minute mark because of how chill I'm being, which is surprising because I was like crawling around on the bottom for most of the dive, which uses up oxygen, but I'm kind of crawling, looking at this school of mangoes coming through. None of them are really convincing me. Like the school that I had seen come through before, they were all way bigger than the fish that are on the screen right now. So I'm kind of just moving slowly, crawling around, looking for a fish that'll, sell me on like, yeah, I want you. So I'm looking. You can see how this structure is like it's still big structure. Like this is great structure for anywhere else, but compared to what I was on earlier, it's like, what is even this? This is nothing. But it's still covered in life, so it's good. It's just there's not as many fish, like ambient fish. It's that one big school of mangroves that's just swimming around, and then there's a couple fish swimming in and out of the pipes like this. But I see this one fish that's kind of selling me, and he comes back into these rocks, and so I have to sit here and wait and end up missing. Yeah. So I head up to surface after failing at that. And I miss again, but I'm not gonna make you watch the full dives of those. I'm just gonna show the 2 misses in a row, by the way, that I do. Ready? So I missed this fish completely. You can see him, how he spooked over there, and I missed this fish. I don't know what I was doing. Tommy shoots mackerel, and after he shoots the mackerel, I follow him down, or not him, but I go down right after, right? There's Tommy dealing with this mackerel. You can see his fin right there. There's another mackerel right there that just crossed the screen. But I didn't really want it that much. Like, at least not enough to pull up from my dive and try to shoot it. Plus, if I had pulled up from my dive at that point, it would have probably spooked if I had just, like, stopped on my way down to try to shoot that fish. It was cruising through as well, so there's a pretty low chance that I would have gotten it. I go to the bottom, and this is that barge thing that I was talking about, the like little barge wreck that's near that tall piece. So the school of mangroves was kind of like, we realized they were kind of hanging out with the barge. So there's part of the school, the like tail end of it, and I'm sitting behind the school, using that piece of the barge to cover most of my body. Just my head is peeking out over it. And I start grunting to call them over. I know that they're in front of me, that the rest of the school is in front of me, so I don't have to worry about looking behind me that often, or like seeing if I could find fish behind me, because I know I want one of these mangoes. So I'm just waiting for the right one to come across my vision here. And right here, you'll see him come in a little bit too close, and the viper attacks. I'm not a viper. He comes too close and I shoot him. Yep. Freaks out a little bit. Whatever. He's mine. Kind of calmly grab him, bring him to the surface. I did kind of mess up the fillet. Not mess up, but like I normally hit mangoes through the gill plate or minimum gut shot, but this one kind of went through the gut on one side and the fillet on the other side. But there's fish in the boat, and that's all I got for the footage today. 25-minute video. Jeez.
All right, we're finished diving. It's only like 4 o'clock? Yeah. Wind picked up just a little bit. Normally, this is a great day on the skiff. The wind is this bad, and we probably won't even get wet on the way back in like we normally do when we take the skiff out. But we've got like 20 fish already. We don't need any more. So we're gonna head in, and I will see you guys tomorrow to go after that Cubera again and shoot that black grouper. Fish are divvied up. We got Tommy's fish, bunch of nice mangoes and stuff. And we got, I just kept one mango and the 2 hogfish. They're in there. But yeah, good day. Punch it. Punch the camera. Punch it.